So the honeymoon phase is over for the Note 20 Ultra, and as a first-time Note user, I'm both impressed and a little bit underwhelmed. Now, maybe this might be because my expectations were a little bit too high for $1,400, but when your phone is worth $1,400, you got to think, is this phone really worth it? Also, I do apologize if my bottom lip is a little bit weird. I went to the dentist today, so I still can barely feel the bottom part of my mouth, so please bear with me, but let's start off with the display. So it's using a 6.9 Quad HD Plus AMOLED display running at 120 Hertz, but you only get that when you drop down to Full HD Plus, and it gets plenty bright when using it outside. Now the screen is curved, and I wanted to give it a chance, kind of like I did with the OnePlus 8 Pro. Unfortunately, I don't like the curvature on this display specifically because for some reason when I'm holding the phone and just using it day to day, or I have it in my hand, I notice that it does register stuff on the side randomly. So, maybe they need to improve some of the software that they have to kind of reject that, or, just don't make curved screens at all. That'd be a major plus. Funny story. So I actually went to my friend's house and took this phone with me because he's using like a Samsung S7, and he wanted to watch Netflix on here, and he was just blown away about how beautiful and how fast Netflix was loading on this phone. And I kind of got the feeling that he wanted to buy this phone just to watch Netflix. Please don't do that. But the display and media consumption on this thing with the stereo speakers, it's a really nice experience. I don't think anyone's going to be dissatisfied using this phone for that. Although if you're buying this phone for media consumption, you might want to think about other things you might want to buy. But primarily I used it for, watching YouTube videos, watching TV shows on Netflix, movies, browsing the web, making phone calls. That has nothing to do with the display, but overall the display is really good. So moving on to the refresh rate and resolution, I know Samsung doesn't allow us to run at the full resolution, or I should say highest resolution at the highest refresh rate possible. That's kind of a bummer. Maybe we don't need to go overkill 120 Hertz on a smartphone, because what is really taking advantage of that other than, gaming? I would have liked to see maybe 90 Hertz if that's possible, but, it's there, I guess. But I do think for most people, they're not really going to notice the difference between Full HD Plus and Quad HD Plus. So if you want to have, I guess, the best and most fluid experience, you might want to stick to Full HD Plus at 120 Hertz. Also, there's a little hole punch at the top, which is pretty small, and it's a 10 megapixel selfie camera. Now we have to talk about the build quality, and my goodness, just holding this phone feels premium. I mean, with this new Gorilla Glass that they have, it's the Victus. They're not using the regular number naming scheme anymore. I can't really tell the difference, but it's Victus, so I'm sure it's better. The aluminum side also feels really nice, and then the glass back. This phone just feels really, really good. Also, it does have a pretty huge camera bump. I would say it's almost half the size of the width of this phone. And kind of like how on the OnePlus 8 Pro, people are not really liking how it can wobble on the table. But like I said before, I think for the most part, I haven't had any problems with that. When you're swiping down from the top or to get to your notifications, you can see that it doesn't really wobble at all. And most of the time you're interacting with the bottom part of the phone most of the time, like touching your keyboard or swiping. So didn't really have too much problems with the wobble that people are having. So next up, I'm actually just gonna hold the phone because it just feels nice. Next up, I want to talk about the unlocking methods. So it does have the in-display fingerprint reader, which I love. So the phone doesn't even have to be on. You can just hold your finger where it would be and it will unlock. And then also has facial unlock. So you just look at the phone. Come on. No match. See? Give me 1 second. No match. Let me do this side. Maybe I just have a bad side. No match. I already know. All right, let me do it directly looking at the phone. There we go. So let me talk about the biometrics. So kind of like laptops, I don't know what it is, but they just don't like unlocking my face. I didn't have this problem too much on the OnePlus 8 Pro, but for some reason, facial unlock on the Note 20 and the Note 20 Ultra, it just wasn't that consistent. Now, I use the fingerprint sensor most of the time. I want to say like 9 times out of 10, I was using the in-display fingerprint reader because it was just fast, consistent, and I didn't have to take off my mask when I went outside. So it's nice that they give you both options. Your mileage may vary. Maybe it'll recognize your face really good compared to mine. But in-display fingerprint reader, I love it, and I hope more companies use it, mainly Apple. Please just bring back Touch ID somewhere. So next I want to highlight some of the key specs. So it's using the Snapdragon 865 Plus or the Exynos 990, depending where you are in the world. It's 5G capable, Wi-Fi 6, HDR10, 12 gigabytes of RAM on all variants, 4K 60 in the front and back, and 8K capable with 24 frames per second. Now, what I want to mention about the 5G, and I guess this is the first 5G phone that I've ever used. Actually, no, that's a lie. OnePlus 8 Pro. But when I went to my friend's house, oh my God. I'm just getting crazy memories already, but I was getting 300 down from a tower somewhere. I don't know if it was LTE. I don't know if it's 5G because I was in his house. But regardless, I was getting 300 down on Sprint. This has nothing to do with this phone. I'm just going on a completely different tangent. But I was getting 300 down. Everything was just so quick. Now, if this is because of the 5G chipset, please, we need 5G on every phone. The fact that I was getting that from cellular service was insane. But in terms of flagship specs, this phone pretty much checks all the boxes on what you're looking for. Has wireless charging, IP68 rated, expandable storage, no headphone jack. That's a bummer because I know that's a deal breaker for most people. But in terms of modern day flagship, this phone is there. It's a flagship phone. That's all I can pretty much say. So in terms of the spec sheet, you're gonna be good to go with the Note 20 Ultra. So next up, I wanna talk about battery life. And battery life on this phone was a miss on the first couple of days, and then it was a hit after that. So the first couple of days, I was getting really bad battery life. I was getting like half a day, sometimes like three-fourths into the day, it was dying on me. But after those couple first days that I don't know if there was some optimization that was happening with the battery or that it was learning the habits that I was doing on the phone. But after that, now I'm getting full day on this phone and sometimes into the next. So I would say if you're having battery problems, give it like a couple of days or maybe a week. Maybe it might start optimizing for what it's doing and what you're doing on the phone to make the battery life last longer. So next up, I want to talk about the camera. We have the massive 108 megapixel wide angled lens. Then we move on to the telephoto, which is 12 megapixel, and then the ultra wide 12 megapixel as well. Now, I'm not a photo camera video geek, genius, expert, I don't know what you want to call it, even though I make YouTube videos, but I would say for the most part, for the average consumer, you're going to be happy with the photos and videos that this phone is able to take. Now, I also want to say if you're the average consumer, I don't know why you're looking at this phone in the first place because it's $1,400, but I would say most people are going to be satisfied with the photos and videos that this phone does take. But do keep in mind, you might want to look at other YouTubers and look at some comparison videos, comparing this to like the iPhone 11 Pro, comparing it to the Pixel 4a, comparing it to the OnePlus 8 Pro. You don't want to have diminishing returns when you start reaching this price point for this camera alone. So do keep that in mind. But overall, I'm really satisfied with the camera and video quality. So the final question is, do you gotta have it? And it's a very different experience. Like I said, I was a little bit underwhelmed with this phone, and it's just not leaving me that same high I had after I used the OnePlus 8 Pro. I still think, I don't even know what I titled that video anymore because it's been a while, but that phone, the OnePlus 8 Pro, felt like the ultimate Android phone at the time and at the price too. And this phone is $500 extra because the OnePlus 8 Pro starts at $900, at least here in the US. And is this phone $500 extra? I completely forgot to talk about the S Pen. The S Pen in comparison to everything else on this phone, I know there's the air gestures, I never used it. I barely wrote on the screen, even though it's really nice. It's whatever for me, but it doesn't have that same, premium feel like the rest of the Note phone. But is this phone worth $1,400? No. I don't recommend buying this phone at Samsung's recommended price for $1,400. It left me wanting more. I don't know exactly what it is. Like I said, my expectations were probably too high, but this phone to me does not feel like it's worth $1,400. Now, if you are a person who doesn't upgrade often, look at this phone, but please look at other phones as well and see if your money is better well spent elsewhere. But in terms of the best of what Samsung has to offer, this is the phone that you're probably gonna have to get, the Note 20 Ultra. And people are also telling me about the trade-in program that Samsung has. So if you are willing to part ways with your smartphone, or your older one, I should say, to buy the Samsung Note 20 Ultra, then I think that's a better choice for most people. For me, I like to keep my older phones just in case for emergencies and backups, or if someone else wants to use a phone for emergencies purposes. But for me, I don't think people should buy this phone at $1,400. There are also some carrier deals that are saying that if you buy this phone, you can get another one free or like $1,000 credit. Actually, you still have to buy the phone in order to get that, and the only person benefiting is the second person. So yeah, I guess you guys go in 50-50, but regardless, $1,400 for this phone by itself, I don't think it's worth it, especially if you're the average consumer. Now, if you are a phone enthusiast, you gotta have the best for your brand, Samsung, then maybe look into getting the Note 20 Ultra, no matter what the price is. But for me, I would probably say this is gonna be a pass for me. Pass meaning that I don't want this phone. At a cheaper price, I'll take this phone any day of the week, but maybe at $1,000, maybe even $1,100. That's hard to say. But like I said, if you need the pen, if the pen is essential to what you do day to day, or it's part of your workflow, then I guess consider the Note 20 Ultra, maybe even the Note 20. But for me, so with all that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Please make sure to subscribe and leave a like if you did enjoy the tech content. My bottom lip, still can't feel it, but I'm waiting for Apple to release the iPhone 12. I've been keeping my eyes and ears shut for the most part. I don't want to spoil the fun for what I want to see out of Apple, but I'm curious to see how it will compete to the Note 20 Ultra, because Apple's always late to the game, but Apple's has had a good year so far. So with all that being said, guys, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and much love.